Whereabouts are you, Claire? Geography. What you used to do if you moved?
Sorry?
Whereabouts do you live? You still over, you were Essex way, weren't you?
No, still in Bedfordshire.
Oh, okay. Did you know, was it a school down there though? Is that where I'm yeah, that's why I'm thinking of the academy.
Yeah, so I was at a trust that had schools. So yeah, that's where it's come from. But gosh, it's good to see you, Cinder. It's been like 10 years.
I know, I've got to say, I think you've aged better than me, looking very glamorous.
Thank you.
Just back to hey Stan. We've got visitors. Anyone else got any visitors? I've got the cat visiting me. Yeah, Stan.
Brilliant. It's 11 o'clock. Do we have most people back?
If people could just let us know you're there, even if you've not got your camera on, that would be great.
Yeah,
if you can put cameras on. Yeah, that was good.
Oh yeah, thumbs up.
You can do thumbs up. Thumbs up. All cameras would be great. Or just say hi in the chat. Okay. Super. Okay, great. So I think we've probably got most people that have returned after their comfort break, which is great. So shall we get started on our next section? Yeah. You think this is, yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you everyone for returning. So as mentioned before, we now have Claire Harrowing from Ceetak. Claire, I think you've probably been here longer than many of us Actus staff have actually. From when you first met Actus. I would call Claire a sort of a typical boomerang customer. So she kind of comes and then she disappears and then she comes back again. So Claire is someone that has come back to us for a third time and is currently implementing Actus at Ceetak. But I will hand over to Claire now to go through her journey with us. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you. It's a real honour, actually, to be here to talk to you about my journey because, as Lucinda said, you know, third time is pretty good going, but it is lovely to see all your faces again, team. And actually, it's particularly lovely for me to see Norge because I've worked with him for the last 8 years, but I have never actually seen his face. So for me this morning, it's a real privilege to get to see you.
Likewise,
so very, very strange. So let's crack on. Let me talk to you about my journey. So I worked for a large engineering company. We were part of a global company, and believe it or not, when I joined, appraisals were done on paper. So absolutely crazy. They then sold us, which was an absolute joy because it meant that we got to do our own thing, and that's where my adventure with Actus started. I then left that company and moved into education, and I have to say Actus is a package that will fit all because I've done an engineering company, then we've gone into education, and we've managed to make the system work. I'm now back in the real world, and I work for a company that does engineering but also does distribution. So a very different company. And also all three companies have been different sizes. So the first company was over 500 staff, the school had 180 staff, and I currently work for an organisation with 68. Three very different companies, but we've all got one thing in common, and that's people. So for me, it's not just about an appraisal, it's about performance management and how we manage those people and their expectations, and how we actually start to view our organisation from their aspirational points of view. You'll have people who are glue, but you'll also have people who have the want and need to succeed in their career. And how are you going to do that if you haven't got a way of monitoring it? So as an HR professional, I've been in my trade for over 20 years. One of the questions that I will constantly ask people when they come to me with a problem is saying, where's the evidence? So having a system like Actus ensures that not only can you keep your appraisals on in one place, but you can do one-to-ones. So if you have a meeting with someone and you're discussing something where perhaps there's a slight issue at the moment that needs to be worked on, you record that in Actus, because then there's a record of your conversation. So when that small issue becomes a larger issue and needs to actually be dealt with correctly and through a process or a policy, having that there on the system will help you. So I think actually sort of everyone will have a different journey and a different adventure, but I'll talk to you a bit about mine and how I got there. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So initially in my first role with Actus, The company, as I say, had worked on paper and we'd been part of a global empire. So it was more about what did we want this system to do? So I put together a project team, and these were key stakeholders from across the whole business, ranging from just staff through to upper management and directors. But the project team had to be across the organisation so that we knew what everyone wanted. And we put together a list of wants and needs and put together a brief. And then I found suppliers that matched that brief. I then got demonstrations booked for the project team and they all attended. And there were 3 companies that came in. The first company that came in was okay. But, you know, we just wanted to make sure that everything in the brief was met. And then from there, we took a vote and proposed and put in writing what we wanted and what would be purchased. So what did they want from it? Well, they wanted a system that took everything off paper, that put more emphasis back on the employees doing some work beforehand. So when you have an appraisal meeting, instead of going in blind as a manager, you would go in knowing what your employees' thoughts were. And it therefore made the appraisal a more focused meeting that was better for both sides. And they also wanted somewhere they could store the evidence, as I've said before, but also that would give us something that we could report on progress. So there are always people who are a little bit dragging their heels with getting their appraisals done, and Actus will show you who has and who hasn't done it. Now, it's not a telltale system. It's a system that just allows you then to say to people, you know, come on, crack on. You've only got another week to get these appraisals done. So, you know, can you let me know where you're at and when they're booked in for? So if we can move on to the next slide, please. I thought I might be trying to find the impossible. How do you find something that meets all the requirements of everybody in that room? So as I said, on each occasion, I shortlisted 3 companies and asked them to show their product to us. The first time I went through it, I learned a lot. So I initially thought that going with a really big company that had done this for years would be the way forward, because it would be flexible solutions and they would help us get the system working for how we wanted it. That was rubbish. They sent someone out, they demonstrated a system, they didn't ask questions of the team. It was a predominantly hard to navigate system and we couldn't see how it could be adapted to meet our need. The second company had a great system, but it kind of a one-trick pony. It didn't do everything that we wanted. And again, not many of us wanted the person demonstrating. They didn't ask us what we wanted. They just told us about their system. Then Lucinda enters the arena. From the minute she walked into the room, she asked questions of the group of what they wanted, what they were looking for, and why we had asked her to come. Everyone in the room warmed to her. The enthusiasm became really high. And then she demonstrated the system and showed us that it would do everything that we wanted, that we had just told her we wanted it to do. She was able to then demonstrate that. The second time was an educational bias on it. And I thought, you know, will Actus work in education? Will it do what I want it to do? And again, I saw a couple and I thought, no, they're just really hard to use. People aren't going to use something that is hard work. So I said to the CEO, I'd used Actus in my previous company, and he invited Lucinda in. And again, she demonstrated to us that there's not a lot that you can't get this system to do. But time has moved on. Lucinda didn't come this time because we didn't need her. We had a wonderful team come in, but I only demoed Actus to my MD this time. I feel the system actually sells itself, and it didn't need anything more than that, really. And the sales team did a great job of demoing it to us. Our MD was sold on about the 3rd page. Everything did what it needed to do. I think I'm probably a slide ahead of you. I think I went back a slide there rather than a slide forward. Can you move forward again, please? Okay, so do your homework. This is really important. This system will do anything you want it to do, but you need to be clear to the project team on what you want it to do. So I'm working with Swag at the moment for the 2nd time, and I know what she needs from me, and I can provide that to her, but it is a big first step. It's a huge decision that you're making on behalf of your employees. So it's got to be the right system for you. Read the client testimonials, contact people who have written them and ask why they chose the system. The reason why I was so happy to talk to you all today is because I've used this 3 times now, and I honestly can say, hand on heart, it has met the need of every organisation I've worked with, and Swag and Norge and the guys can make it do pretty much anything to work for your organisation. If a system's too complex, it's not going to get used. People aren't going to do it. You need to find something that works for everybody and get their buy-in. The lovely thing with Actus is that the staff do their bit beforehand. We haven't implemented yet. We're midway through implementation. So this year, all the staff did their appraisals on paper again. But what I did with them this year was I made them, they previously had 3 questionnaires to complete, 1 pre-appraisal, 1 appraisal, and then 1 post-appraisal. This year, I pulled all 3 forms into one and made them complete it before their appraisal and return it to their manager 5 days in advance, so that the managers actually had a chance to review what they'd written and be able to respond. Therefore, the appraisal became a great process again, as opposed to previous years when they've not really had that open discussion because they've been too busy writing. So I've kind of got them into the Actus mindset before we've even got there, which has been great. I've been in position 3 months. I've already got my system in place. I can't say anything more about it. It's just fantastic. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all today. And if you've got any questions, feel free to fire them at me.
Thank you, Claire. And I think it's nice to recognise the fact that it is something that's flexible, but we can only be flexible if people talk to us. And one of the other points that you're making, although you've done different things with different companies, there are people on here, although I don't think we've got anyone from Leeds today who stands out as one of our longest running housing association up in Leeds. It often makes sense to refresh the system. So sometimes you know, if you want to do a little bit of an adjustment, freshen it up, maybe you refresh your appraisal, you change the language, you change the tone of the actual document. So we had one with in fact Leeds will be on their 3rd shaping of it. They did one where they changed it from appraisal to being achievement conversation. Whatever you like, if you kind of have your vision for what's right for your culture and you want to sort of semi relaunch something, really, that, you know, especially if you work with someone like Nuji and Jane, they work with you to help get the system to support what it is you're after doing culturally, and sometimes that's all you need to get a bit of a refresh and for people to engage with it. So on those sort of things, remember, those are things that are absolutely possible. Just talk to us and we'll do our best to adjust it to help it work for you or wherever you're trying to go culturally at that time. Are there any questions here? I'll keep an eye out. It may be what we'll do is if anyone's got any questions, it was quite quiet on the question